Good morning and welcome to the session for Assistive Technology Consideration in the Online IEP. I am Leanne Brammer. I'm the coordinator at the West Virginia Department of Education for Assistive Technology, AIM, OT, PT, and Speech. The link to the resources folder is listed here and will also be placed in the chat. It's also been placed in the chat box for you to access that. Today, we hope that you'll be able to list the 12 areas of consideration for AT because most people don't realize there are actually 12 areas to consider. We also want you to be able to understand the laws that require that we provide assistive technology to students, and then understand the AT consideration process and be aware of low-tech to high-tech options for assistive technology. Assistive technology is so expansive and so ever-changing, and you guys know what it's like just to even get a phone, and you know how it's obsolete within the next 6 months. So assistive technology is a lot to keep track of, and that's the reason we try to support as much as we can. The assistive technology definition, this is from IDEA, and one of the things that it mentions is that each public agency shall ensure that assistive technology devices or assistive technology services or both are made available to children with disabilities if they require them. An assistive technology device is any piece of equipment, whether it's off the shelf, modified or customized, or whether it's specifically designed as assistive technology product that can be used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with disabilities. The term does not include a medical device that's surgically implanted, like a cochlear implant or pacemaker or something like that. An assistive technology service is a service that directly assists a child with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. And this is the important part for teachers and parents. For teachers, please know that you have the right to request training with the communication device, and you have the right to have that training provided to you periodically. A lot of times that's necessary as students make gains and advancements with their assistive technology equipment. So many times I think one of the reasons assistive technology fails is because teachers are just handed a piece of equipment, and then that piece of equipment is put on the shelf because the teacher doesn't know how to use it. So for right now, just remember that you have the right to request that to be part of the Online IEP as a related service. There are 3 laws that school systems are responsible for adhering to in the provision of assistive technology. One is IDEA, which everyone's familiar with. The other one is, one of them is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you've probably heard of that one because of curb cutouts and building access and that kind of thing. But Title II has some specific supports for students with disabilities, especially for communication and hearing and vision. And then Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. IDEA requires that each school district ensures that AT devices are provided. And then if you've participated in IEP before, you've seen that the IEP team determines whether or not the assistive technology is provided for home use. And since I am a speech language pathologist by trade and training, I always like to mention the fact that communication does not stop at the end of the school day. So if a student has a communication device that's been provided by the school system, please give careful consideration to being able to send that device home for the student. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act is very rarely used by parents because, for one thing, parents don't know that it exists, and most public school employees don't either. But it covers public school students regardless of their eligibility for special education. And auxiliary aids and services that are needed to ensure that the communication for students with disabilities is just as effective as students without disabilities. That piece is very should be considered carefully because to try to make that student to be able to communicate like their peers, that can be very difficult because we all know that augmentative communication can be kind of messy. Um, and so it can be, not complete sentences and that kind of thing. So that piece definitely needs some careful consideration. The other piece that needs to be given great consideration is the fact that with this law, the parents and the students are given the primary consideration in determining the aid, the auxiliary aid and service. So a parent who's heard about something on Good Morning America, or they've heard of a family who's used a particular device, can come in and request that. And unless the county can provide an alternative that has equal power and capability, then the parent can receive what they want. So especially with augmentative communication, a lot of times I know people are hesitant to do an AUG-COM evaluation, and they feel like they don't have the training to do it. We are going to be providing supports for that this year through the Technical Assistance Center for Accessibility and Transitions. So don't let that stop you from providing augmentative communication equipment. But, if a student doesn't have a way to communicate and a parent comes in and requests a specific device, then the county has to provide that. So the students have to be able to participate in and enjoy the benefits of the services, programs, and activities that are offered from the public school district. And with Section 504, students with disabilities are covered with Section 504, regardless of their eligibility for special education and related services. In general, violations of 504 constitute a violation of Title II ADA. One thing that happens sometimes with Section 504 students who require assistive technology is that the funding is different for those students. It's general ed initiative, Section 504 is, and so it's gen ed money, not IDEA funds that can be used for that. So, just remember that the counties are responsible for providing assistive technology for those students as well. When we think about assistive technology, it gives us the opportunity to make students with disabilities independent, self-confident, productive, and integrated into the school and society. Technology is for all, and with disabilities, it may need to be more personalized. This is a video that I'm going to show, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just 1 second because I forgot to toggle on the sound. Okay, now we're ready. This just shows the difference that a piece of assistive technology made for a student who has a visual impairment.
My name is Mason.
Mason is 6 years old. He enjoys a variety of things. He likes music.
This instrument is called the ukulele.
He also enjoys playing the Wii. He loves bowling and tennis, and he also loves dance party. He calls it Just Dance. It's hard for him to follow along with movements, but he just dances and has a good time.
That's about my favorite game.
Mason is visually impaired. He actually is blind in his left eye, and in his right eye he has partial retina that he uses to see with. With that retina that he has intact, he can see about 2300 vision compared to the normal 20/20. We are a normal family, and Mason is a normal child, and we just use some adaptations to help make him successful and adapt to his needs and the loss of his vision.
My name is Evie Pembroke, and I'm Mason's teacher of the blind and visually impaired, and also his orientation and mobility specialist. In the classroom, Mason uses his Mountbatten as far as technology goes, mostly for writing activities. So anytime the teacher has the students doing pencil paper writing, Mason uses his Mountbatten.
You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You just press down these keys. When you type something, it will tell you what you typed. C-A. It's like bumps to read.
So the Mountbatten Brailler was new to us last year. The school district here has been fabulous about providing technology and any other accommodations that we've requested. So the school district purchased the Mountbatten for Mason to use as long as he needs it.
He can read some large print, but at this point we are teaching him Braille early so that as the letters get smaller and the grades get bigger, he can keep up with the class by being real comfortable with the Braille. He also uses an iPad at school and at home, which is convenient for him for educational games, for spelling, because the letters are often larger and the contrast is usually better, which makes it easier for him to see that.
Spell came.
Ooh.
E C C A M E C A M E came. Super.
Mason uses the smartboard at school, which is great for him because it's so large. Often it's high contrast. He can interact with the smartboard just like his classmates can. So it allows him to be that normal child. When the classmates are interacting with the smartboard, he can go up and use it as well because it's often big enough for him to see.
So this is a smartboard here. You have to tap an E, and then you have to put it into the nest.
Technology in the field of blind and visual impairments is constantly changing. And in fact, Mason, while he's using a Mountbatten now, that's not necessarily the primary piece of technology that he'll be using in a couple of years. There are Braille note takers, there's screen reading devices. Technology is constantly changing. And Mason, because he's so technology driven, that will probably be continuing to integrate technology into his classroom experience.
I'll see you later. Gotta drive. Bye.
Okay, so that just gives you an idea of what a difference technology made in that little boy's life and how he could participate with his peers with that technology availability. We have a guidance document. Some of you may know that, some of you may not. The guidance document does provide directions for school districts, including their district responsibilities. There are forms to use during the evaluation process, and don't let it intimidate you. If you look at the booklet and think, oh my goodness, I have to do all these forms. You do not have to do all those forms. They're all there though to be used if someone would need them, because not every student is going to need every evaluation. There are also suggestions on how to incorporate AT into the online IEP and some resources for obtaining AT equipment. With the consideration process, assistive technology should be considered at each IEP meeting. There's a section on the IEP that asks if the child requires assistive technology. And remember that assistive technology device or service has to provide access to the educational environment. This is what the section, the page on the online IEP looks like when you do the assistive technology consideration. And number 2, it asks, does the student need assistive technology devices or services? And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, I think when that question is asked, either the people, the team that's involved in the IEP meeting, or the parents don't really understand what assistive technology devices and services are. And so part of this presentation is to be able to help you give a better consideration when you're asked that question. Because as you consider each student, you should really try to think, do they need assistive technology in any way to access their educational environment? There are 12 areas for assistive technology consideration. And a lot of you have probably thought about things like computer access or seating and mobility, and hopefully you've thought about communication. But there are also assistive technology devices that are available for reading, math, for organization and executive functioning skills, for vision, hearing, composition of written materials. There are actually 12 areas. And for some students, especially students with specific learning disabilities, there may be some assistive technology that would help them have better access to their educational environment. And this page, I forgot to mention, this page is available in the guidance document on page 13, and it looks at tasks that the student can't do for each one of the areas, and then things that have been tried in the past. And then you can kind of plan out as a team to determine what needs to be done, tried in the future. This is really a great way, especially if you have a student who you know is going to need some assistive technology, to be able to delineate and have the team discuss it. Because if you don't have team consent and team input, then the assistive technology is probably not going to be as successful as you want it to be for the student. I can tell you with my past experience, I used to do augmentative communication evaluations for Kanawha County. And when I first started doing them, I just went in and did them myself. I didn't have anyone on the team involved with it because, I knew they were busy and that kind of thing. Well, I figured out very quickly that you need the team members involved, and that includes the parents and the classroom teacher. Without them, you don't have the input, you don't have the concerns that they have, and you don't know whether or not they will support what you provide for them. So the team decision is always the best. In the guidance document, under district responsibilities, it says every school district needs to have someone, that can maybe attend IEP meetings or has some knowledge about IEP team choices that can be made for assistive technology devices and services. And then it also goes on to say that every school district employee who works with students with disabilities, so that includes general ed teachers, that includes classroom aides, that includes all related service providers, principals, anybody who has contact and works with those students should have just a general knowledge and awareness level knowledge about assistive technology, what it does and what it is. Every employee who works with students with disability and has contact with parents of those students should know the laws about assistive technology. They should know the district procedures for obtaining assistive technology and assistive technology evaluations, and know how to initiate those procedures. I do realize that some counties don't have a process for doing assistive technology evaluations. And in just a little bit, we're going to talk about some options you have for that. Some counties are so small that they don't have an assistive technology team or someone who can do those evaluations for them. So I'm very excited to tell you that there are some options on the way. And those I'll tell you about in just a little bit. There is an assistive technology fact sheet, and for those of you who are just joining, there is a link in the chat box for all of the resources I'm going to be using today for the PowerPoint and then for like this fact sheet. But this has some really good information about assistive technology. So if you're attending an IEP meeting and you know that you're going to be discussing assistive technology for a student, you might want to have this with you to be able to share with teachers and parents especially. This summer, it was early summer, we worked on a consideration guide for assistive technology. And one of the reasons we did it was because, as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of times that that AT consideration is done in an IEP meeting and people really don't even know what they're talking about or discussing. So with this document, what we did was look at all 12 areas of assistive technology, and then we tried to address the considerations based on 4 different areas. Sample tasks that might have to be done in the classroom, standard classroom materials, accommodations and modifications that we might need to make in order for the student to participate, and then some suggested assistive technology. And this document is in your resource folder. I selected 3 or 4 of the pages just to kind of show you how this document works and how helpful it could be. I would suggest that if you know that you are going to be doing some consideration for computer access, for instance, for a student, that you maybe have this document with you so you can kind of show it to the parent and give the parent a copy as you go through and talk about the tasks. And you can just kind of highlight what the student can't do, what barrier the student experiences when they're trying to do these tasks, and then hopefully it will take you to the accommodation and suggested assistive technology you might want to try. Um, for instance, using a computer. It could be different types of computers. It could be a desktop computer, a laptop, a tablet, those kinds of things. The accommodations that might need to be addressed for this student might include the assignment format, changing the complexity of the material, increased time, shortened assignments, placement of devices with students, and then peer and adult assistance. With that, if you make those accommodations and that doesn't change things or make it better, then you can think about some assistive technology, or you can do both. You can do the accommodations and modifications and consider some assistive technology. Some suggestions here for AT for computer access include switch interface for a personal computer, switch interface for an iPad or tablet, and they do have those available now through Bluetooth. There are various switches that might be considered. You can use adapted styluses. Um, and with that, just remember you can use any body part. So you could use a head pointer or a mouth stick or a stylus for the hand and arm. And a lot of times OTs and PTs will help with those types of suggestions. Voice activation is a great option for computer access for students. Adapted keyboards and then adapted mice. There are all different types available. So that's just some of the things you can consider for assistive technology for computer access. When it comes to reading, of course, reading happens all day long in the classroom, and some of the sample tasks it could be something as simple as positioning the reading material. If the student can't hold their book or they can't manipulate the pages, for reading, they might need a modification or assistive technology device. Excuse me. They might need something to help them recognize and read their name. Maybe summarize key points. It just depends on the needs of the student. And that's a reason everything you do for assistive technology, and we all know that everything you do for special education should be individualized and based on the needs of the student. Sorry. Some of the classroom materials might include computers, electronic texts, projected information with smart boards and that kind of thing, textbooks, whiteboards, and worksheets. Some of the accommodations are listed here. I'm not going to go through them all. If you download the document, you'll be able to read them, but look at all the different assistive technology options you have for someone who needs reading assistive technology, and realize that it goes all the way from something as simple and low tech as page fluffers to just separate the pages so the student can turn the pages themselves, all the way up to ebook readers, literacy suite software, document scanners, and alternative access options like adapted pointers and that kind of thing. So this is not by any means a completely comprehensive list, but it's a pretty, it's not an exhaustive list, but it is pretty comprehensive as far as some of the things you can consider. And the same thing goes for math. You know, there were a lot of tasks that you're trying to complete regarding math in the gen ed classroom. And with that, these are some of the standard materials that you can use: calculators, graph papers, those kinds of things. And then the accommodations can make a difference, but if, you know, if they don't, or you need more, you can always go again to all the way from page fluffers and adapted paper down to adapted measuring devices like talking calculators, talking tape measures, and those kinds of things. So if you get a chance, and it definitely, if you're going to be discussing and considering assistive technology for a student, check this document out. I think you'll like it, and it'll help at least direct your conversation. Almost every piece of assistive technology equipment should be provided based on an assistive technology evaluation. Now, I will say that OTs and PTs a lot of times know exactly what the student needs because they're basing their recommendations on their motoric capabilities. And so they might come in with a cube chair and that kind of thing because they know that without getting an evaluation. But when it comes to augmentative communication, and definitely some of the other 12 areas like motor aspects of writing and computer access and those kinds of things, a lot of times it's important to have an evaluation for that. And I would not recommend any augmentative communication devices without an evaluation, at least gathering information and knowing where the student's functioning receptively. It should be a team process. And this team process is delineated in the AT guidance document. Um, with that, the team should gather information. And for some students, you might have to do some more testing, especially if you're doing an OGCOM eval. You might have to do some language testing, like the communication matrix or Peabody picture vocabulary test, and some other tests that will give you a good idea of where the child's functioning receptively. And then the team should make the decision about which which assistive technology device they want to try. And a trial period should take place with that. A lot of times I think that special ed directors, when they hear about assistive technology, think, well, that's just going to be another device that'll be put on the shelf. Well, if you base your recommendation not only on an evaluation and a team decision process, but you have data to support the fact that the student can use it and it does break down the barriers and it meets their individual needs, then a special education director is going to be willing to fund that device for you. I will recommend, will say too, that a lot of times I think people are afraid to initiate AT evaluations because they know it's going to cost money to provide the device, but that there is money set aside by the county for those purposes. And We also have an assistive technology supplemental funding grant for unanticipated expenses like eye gaze systems, brailers, and for students who move into the county, who are new to the county or in preschool that you didn't know you needed to budget money for equipment for. So there are options available, so don't let that stop you from requesting an AT evaluation. And then after the trial use, and you have the documentation to support it, then the recommendation and incorporation into the IEP should happen, and the team should make that happen. If you'll look here, it's a team decision every step of the way, and that's what's going to make your AT successful, having that whole team involved. We are very excited that we are going to be offering services in the fall through the West Virginia Technical Assistance Center for Accessibility and Transitions. It's located in Romney at the Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And with this center, we were able to do a collaboration with the Division of Rehab Services, and they have provided funding for us to have a grant to establish a lending library. Not only are we going to establish a lending library with just about every communication, um, deaf, hard of hearing, and visually impaired device that we could find, but we're also going to offer services through the team at the center. We have a multidisciplinary team that will be available to do AT evaluations for counties, and we are so excited to be able to make that happen. For those counties who don't have someone who can do the evaluations, we can actually send the team to them. Um, Through the grant, we were able to establish vans, 2 vans. Um, we did that in cooperation with the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, but these vans can take the team and travel to different counties to do evaluations, because what that team wants to see is how the student's doing in the classroom. They want to see the barriers themselves. They want to see what the student's trying to do, what tasks the student's trying to do that they have barriers for, and then figure out what they need to do to address that. So this will be offered to not only school-age students, but to students who are getting ready to transition, um, um, starting transition services at age 14 and up. And with that, DRS will help support the student with devices that they need and that kind of thing. And they'll actually be able to have their personal device with them as they exit um, school aids, the school system, and go on to life beyond school, whether they go to college or whether they go to a work program or adult education. They will have access to their device. And so it's going to be very important, and we'll be doing training on this. It's going to be very important that during the consideration at transition meetings, that the AT is also considered. If there's a student who could possibly benefit from assistive technology who hasn't had it before, then they can obviously have experience with it from age 14 till they exit around age 21. So we're very excited to offer that. We're also going to have a website with online menu of available trainings and resources. That will be an ongoing fluid website. And we're going to offer short courses, all kinds of collaborative statewide trainings, and we have a team that is the best of the best in the state to help do that. So we are very, very excited about this center. We're going to offer services for AIM and assistive technology using the multi-tiered system of supports. And one of the things we're going to do too with that lending library is allow counties and therapists to check out equipment to be able to use it for those trial periods and not have to give it back. at the end of 2 weeks or a month or whatever. You know, hopefully you'll be able to hold on to it until you're able to recommend a device and then until that device can come in. So that's one of the things that we were trying to alleviate, is the fact that so many times after trial periods are over, students have a period of time, 6 to 8 weeks, where they don't have access to AT again. And we want to try to take care of that. So we're also going to be offering professional development as a universal service through the TA Center, and that will be through conferences and different trainings. We're going to have some targeted services that look at specific AT trainings by discipline, by technique, and by device. And then we'll also have some intensive training for people who've gone through the AT boot camp before, or who have started, you know, been trying to do your own AT evaluations. But let's say you run into a student who has complex communication needs or complex needs, period, and perhaps needs some support to be able to address all those needs. We will be providing mentoring services for evaluations for specific students. So the center is available to everyone, and we're very excited to get that started. Another place that can do AT evaluations is West Virginia Assistive Technology Systems, or WVATS. They have a lending library as well. And what we tried to do with our lending library was not compete with a lot of the things they have to offer that we don't. We're providing assistive technology for access, and they are too, but a lot of their access is going to be for other things like self-help skills, recreation. They do have switches and games and that kind of thing too. And they do have some augmentative communication devices as well. So just remember that they have that lending library, and they also now are offering a fee-for-service AT evaluations. So they too will travel to your district to do evaluations for students and provide support after. And this is just a brief video, introductory video about WebAds. And then these are links to the lending library and to WebAds itself. We are going to be changing up the way we've done assistive technology boot camp in the past. In the past, we had a mass number over 100. I think it was around 115 people that we trained in large groups. And we had trainings in the summer, in the spring and in the fall. And we're going to change that up because we have decided that, you know, the new research is talking for adult learning is talking about mentoring and that kind of thing. And so we need to do better with follow-up after the training, because when people would leave and try to go back to their counties to do AT evaluations, I think sometimes they were intimidated, and I completely understand that. So what we've decided to do, our whole team has come to this decision, is we're going to do targeted and intensive training for county AT teams. We're going to have an application process, and it'll go out in the fall. And what we're going to do is ask for counties to submit an application for us to train their teams. Instead of choosing anybody who signs up, we're going to choose 3 to 4 teams that we'll work with intensively for this whole year, for a whole entire year. We're going to offer non-degree grad credit for the training, hands-on experience, and opportunities to earn badges for signatures and resumes and that kind of thing by showing, by demonstrating proficiency in different devices and different techniques. And so we're very excited about the changes that we've made to the assistive technology boot camp process. But just remember too, like I said, for those of you who've gone through the AT boot camp process in the past, we still will provide this. We can provide you the hands-on experience. We can provide you opportunities to earn badges and signatures for your resumes. And we can also offer the mentoring through the Technical Assistance Center in Romney. New research and best practice says we have to presume potential and build on those skills. So many times, assistive technology is recommended based on the diagnosis of the student, and that is not the way to determine what assistive technology they need. For instance, students with autism, people automatically think, oh, they need PECs. Well, PECs may be fine and it may meet the needs of some students very well. I've personally used PECs a lot and had students be successful with it and move on to higher tech devices. But it could be that some of those students with autism could start out with a higher tech device because they do have those motor planning skills and are very good with visual memory. So um, you just need to consider the evaluation piece for determining what communication system a student needs to use, regardless of their diagnosis. And a lot of times too, for students who are in ID classrooms, people think, well, all they need is Big Mac. Well, even if the student is functioning at the 1-year level or the 2-year level, and they're in high school, think about the vocabulary of a student who is 1 or 2 years old. They usually have a couple of hundred words. So being able to, and they might even by two, they're stringing words together. So a Big Mac is just not going to provide all they need at that point. So that evaluation becomes extremely important. When we think of assistive technology, um, we usually think of it in terms of low tech, mid tech, and high tech. Now, there are different considerations now, but this is the one that really kind of makes sense to people. And so this is the one, I wanted to present today. And I'm sorry about that slide being off. Evidently, the compatibility is a little different here with this new um, um, setup for the PowerPoint, so I apologize for that. With low tech, those devices are simple. They usually have little maintenance and limited or no electronics. And for some students, that may be exactly what they need, and they may perform very well with that, based on the evaluation that you do. Mid-tech devices require some maintenance. They might require some training to use them, but nothing usually very extensive, and they might have some more electronics involved. And then with high tech, those are usually complex electronics and require more training and more maintenance. And that's where, as we were discussing at the very beginning, if you're a classroom teacher on this session, just remember that if you have a student who's going to be receiving a high-tech device, you can request as a related service periodic training with that high-tech device as a support for you as you try to work with that student in the classroom. What we're going to do now is just kind of look through some of the different pieces of equipment and assistive technology that can be used for students for all 12 areas. As you can tell, some of these pieces of equipment are very low tech, like the seat cushion and the ball chair. Those don't have any electronics, those kinds of things, as well as this tilted chair with the stabilizer on it. But then some of them can be very complicated and even electronic. You can see he's got a control panel here to drive his wheelchair. So for seating and mobility, these are just some of the options you might see for students in the classroom. Communication, my goodness, the communication opportunities and communication devices have just exploded over the last several years. Even though we only have two major really now manufacturers because they've joined forces. We have Tobii Dynavox and we have PRC Saltillo who provide the high-end devices. But then we also have some low-tech devices. It can be something as simple as a sentence strip that the student can use to communicate with. It can be something as simple as a 7-level communicator and a PECS notebook. Even though PECS notebooks can have hundreds of pages, just remember that while they have they can have not hundreds of pages. Nobody could carry that around. I meant hundreds of vocabulary words in them, hundreds of symbols. Just remember that this device can hold thousands. So that's the reason it's important to determine the needs of the student for communication by doing an evaluation first. With computer access, it is the same thing. Apple has made so many modifications for accessibility to their iPads. It's amazing. They really have stepped out and led the field for that. And there are different modifications and extensions that can be made to Chromebooks and to laptops and desktops. But there are also some things like touch screens and different types of switches and different types of mice and different styluses. This is a stylus, different things to provide computer access and a directional mouse. So these are just the tip of the iceberg as far as what's available, and that's the reason it's important to, have someone in your district or have some way to know what would be appropriate for students. And if you don't have that, just remember we have the Technical Assistance Center, and we'll be glad to help you out. For motor aspects of writing, the assistive technology can be something as simple as a slant board, and those are very simple, or a pencil grip. Those are very simple. I wouldn't recommend any of these without the impact, or anything for motor aspects of writing without the input of an OT. But for them, sometimes it's easy for them to consider the motoric needs of the student and be able to give you suggestions without having to do an evaluation. It could be that you need to use text to speech and drag and dictate, and there are text to speech apps that you can use and different modifications. And it could be that you can use touch screens to build messages or adaptive keyboards. So here again, all kinds of options, and these are just some examples. I just wanted to be able to show you that, depending on the individual needs of the student, you could do low tech all the way to high tech recommendations for assistive technology for each one of these 12 areas. For composition of written material, there are all kinds of things here that can be used. And, one of the things that you might not think about is communication devices and sorry about that, different apps that can be used on iPads for communication to build messages, and then those can be printed out. So you can do even papers for class and that kind of thing on those kinds of devices. So the sky's kind of the limit, just depending on the needs of the student. For reading, we can have screen readers. You can have text to speech where the screen's read for you. Some of the screen readers do highlight sentences. Some of them highlight individual words, and you can set your assistive technology to meet the needs of the student. It could be something as simple as a simple board where the student just has to have a visual support to be able to read. And, magnifiers, all different types of magnifiers can be used for students who have a reading disability or print disability because of visual skills. And one plug that I want to make here as we consider reading, if you're a special education teacher or a gen ed teacher on this session, please remember accessible educational materials. We're required to provide that by law as well. And now you don't have to have a doctor's recommendation saying that there's a neurological condition, and the student doesn't even have to have an IEP to qualify for some of the modifications that can be made through either the read aloud services like Bookshare and Learning Ally, or through digital resources that are available for students with learning disabilities. And honestly, when we compare the number of students who have read aloud on their IEPs and the number of students who have AIM listed on their IEP, there's a huge discrepancy. So we are very excited to have an AIM specialist now who is based at the Technical Assistance Center, who can help with any type of print disabilities that the student might be experiencing. And she is going to offer her services using the same multi-tiered system of supports. For math, you can have something as simple as a number line, an abacus, Unifix cubes. That's assistive technology. If the student needs that to access their math classes and their math assignments, then that's assistive technology for them, and so is a talking calculator. For organization, for those students who may be affected by the opioid epidemic or autism and have executive functioning issues, or those students who have ADD and have difficulty organizing themselves, you can have something as simple as a stress ball to organize their sensory system, or it can be something as simple as a first then visual to help organize them and let them know I do have to do this first, but then I'm going to get what I want to do. Sometimes that's all it takes to make a difference for a student because they want to know what's going to happen next. I'm sorry, this keeps advancing. I'm talking too much, I think. It can be something as simple as a daily schedule to help organize the student and let them know what's happening. It can be a notebook where you organize their classwork for them, or something that they can have on their phone, like just a calendar. I mean, I don't know what I would do without mine, that's for sure. So just remember, you know, for all 12 areas, there are low tech to high tech options. For recreation and leisure, you may be saying, why are we doing this for school? You know, it's not like we're going to be doing sled hockey and that kind of thing. And you're right. But if you have a preschooler who could use an adapted tricycle, for instance, and be able to participate with their peers on the playground, then that's something you definitely need to consider. If they could play with another student during their playtime or circle time or something like that, and have um, some modified equipment, then we are required to provide that. Sometimes it could be something as simple as if they're using iPads for recreation, you know, playing games on them, having a different case for them to hold. So there are all different types of recreation and leisure assistive technology, and man, oh man, the virtual reality assistive technology is exploding as well.
And Leanne, I hate
Yes,
to interrupt you. You
you're
now
fine.
have 130 people.
Oh my goodness,
People
I'm
finally got
so
on.
sorry about the
We,
beginning. Okay.
we were Leanne and I were sitting here at 9:30. It's like nobody's here. Something is really wrong. But you do have a question about the notebook. The notebook that
Okay.
was shown, I believe it was in the organization notebook in the
Yes.
organization section. She
Mhm.
wanted to know where you could get a notebook like the one shown. And Ann Morrison wants to know, do you need to list things like the Unifix cubes and stress ball on the IEP?
If you're going to use those things in the gen ed classroom, you would list those under supplementary services if nobody else is using it in the classroom. If everybody in the classroom has a stress ball and has access to Unifix cubes, then no, you don't need to list them. But if that student has to have them in order to be able to participate, then yes, you should. And just think too that you're thinking about the student. What if they transfer to another school or another county or another state? You know, making sure that everybody understands what they need to have to access their educational environment is what you need to do. And as far as this notebook is concerned, I grabbed this off of Google, but I will check on it for you, and I will try to post something in that resource folder that we have, or I can post it in this Teams group too. You'll still have access to this, I think, once this is over, but I will try to find out for you where we got that. Okay. So now we were on to vision, and you know there are braillers, different types of braillers, different types of screen magnifiers, um, different types of keyboards that have even braille keys on them. So you know here again we have all different types of options. For hearing, of course, we have closed captioning, we have FM systems, and this student's wearing an FM system. The teacher is too, so she can hear the teacher's voice directly. For daily living skills, you know, there are all types of modifications that can be made in different pieces of equipment. I love this sandwich holder, but if you think about it, you know, somebody might say, well, why on earth would you do that? If you think about being able to make someone independent by being able to use that, you know, you might really think about it again. What I did for these last several slides was just list some um, different types of tools low-tech and high-tech tools that are based on disabilities, different disabilities. And so this also shows what grade levels it would be appropriate for. I just thought this might be helpful for you. And this complete resource will be in your resource folder as well. Same thing for executive functioning. Like I said, those students who have affected by the opioid epidemic, who have autism, a lot of those students and those students with dyslexia have some executive functioning issues. So these are some things you can try to provide for them, both low tech and high tech. These are some dyslexia resources. It can be something as simple as raised paper, and it can be computer programs like CoWriter. These are some more resources that are available, and these are hyperlinked for each one of the disabilities. And the reason I did this was in case there were some gen ed teachers on here, just so you could be able to access some information from that. I know Libby said we had some, those couple of questions, but are there any more questions? I know we went through this quickly, and I am so sorry about the mix up with the link, but we sent the link, the new links last Friday, so I'm not sure why they didn't get carried over. But if that happens to you again on any of my sessions, I think they're going to be fixed from now on. But if it happens on any of my sections, just be sure and get out and come back in. The link should be changed in Eventbrite, so all your future session links should be correct. And I'm sorry for the people who are calling and texting me and emailing and all that too. I was doing the session, and so I couldn't stop since we were doing the recording. I'm going to stop the recording right now because I'm not hearing any